Yeah, so once again, thank you for attending our user group meeting today. As we go through the session, we're going to be covering a variety of different topics, and I'll put up an agenda here on the screen. You'll notice in the control panel, if it is taking up part of your screen, you can minimize that to the side. However, there is a questions panel there. I know some of you already responded to letting me know that you can hear me okay. But feel free to post questions at any time. We're going to make this an interactive session, and we definitely appreciate the questions you may have. We'll try and do an unmute again a little bit later if we can. Otherwise, you may have to just pose your questions in the Q&A panel. We're monitoring those, and we'll tackle those throughout the session today. But the main breakdown is we kind of just put together a couple slides of the registered attendees. I think we actually had another dozen or so just today that have signed up, but at least it gives you a little bit of a flavor of who was previously registered for this session and this user group meeting. We'll go over some of the new capabilities of Business Objects 4.1. We'll do some how-to demos and showcase some of that functionality for you. We'll also talk a little bit about the upgrade expectations, and Lyle will kind of chime in and share some thoughts around upgrading that. We'll talk about the Virtual Academy, as well as some things coming up with Business Objects with our BI QuickLaunch for JD Edwards offering around that, and what to expect and timing for that. So we're going to go ahead and start by looking at the attendees. So this is kind of the kind of breakdown of who was pre-registered as of a few days ago. I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll here just to kind of get some interaction going. So you should see a poll that asking about what the weather is like where you are located. So the options are sunny and smiling, cloudy and depressing, mild and ho-hum, stormy and crazy, or I don't know, I've been stuck in an office all day. Let's keep that open for a few more seconds here, another 10 seconds or so, and then we'll share those results. All right, so let's go ahead, we'll close that poll. And let's go ahead and share that. So I think we should see the results that's coming through.
Yep.
Okay. So the good news is that the majority of people online are smiling at least, and it happens to be sunny where they're at. We've got about a quarter of the group where it is cloudy. I'm going to say it's cloudy and not depressing. That was maybe not a fair combination there. And 7% of you need to kind of get out of the office. So anyhow, thanks again for attending. We're going to do some more polls as we go through the session. Just a little bit more information about the breakdown of the registered attendees. Primarily, a big group is Enterprise 1. So you can see here almost a little more than 80% Enterprise 1, 13% World, and then small percent Other.
Adam, I'm only seeing the poll results.
Oh, let me go ahead and close that. Hide the poll.
There we go.
Thank you. Could have been a long session looking at that poll result. So anybody online, feel free to post something in the Q&A panel saying, hey, it's not updating on my screen or something as well. So looking at the breakdown here again by JD version, primarily majority of people online are Enterprise 1. From a source database perspective, this was actually a little surprising. I was surprised to see more than half the people on DB2, and nearly an even split between Oracle and SQL Server, with a little bit less than 50%. Seems like more than the recent installs of the JD Edwards happen to be on non-DB2, but any kind of upgrades, a lot of people, if they were running World on DB2, seem to be maybe sometimes sticking with the platform and sometimes doing a switch to something else. But that was interesting. We also kind of looked at just a breakdown of the BI QuickLaunch for customers that have either crystal reports, content only, or universes only, or the crystal and universes combined. And so again, it was a big, strong majority are actually using both universes and crystal. And some of that may lend itself well to our discussion as we get into some of the new functionality with 4.1. And then as far as business objects version, this is another one that was surprising to me, because I know we've been busy doing a lot of upgrades in the last year or a couple years, but I was surprised to see so many people already upgraded to 4.1. We still have some in 4.0 and some at 3.1. And then at 4.1, there's different support packs or service packs that people are at. So the latest release is SB6, and I think Lyle will talk about the transition and what to expect if you're looking at doing an upgrade from an earlier version to the latest. Nobody at least that was registered for this was on a version that, to my knowledge, and again I could be mistaken, so I apologize if anybody's online that's not on one of these versions. But XIR2, I know that there may be some customers out there still on that, but that's pretty old. Been end of life for several years, and I think Lyle will talk about the end of life of 3.1 when he gets into the upgrade discussion. So just looking at, and this was recently I read an article from the BI scorecard, and it was actually a good article. If anybody's interested, feel free to put that in your comments at the end, and I'll forward it to you. But it kind of talked about the current state of the different use cases, as well as the different tools and types of solutions. And so if you kind of look at where the BI and analytics market is today, it seems to be moving in the direction of business user-driven analysis. It's always been kind of a goal, I think, to have self-service BI and reporting, and but the traditional approach in the past was pretty much IT builds the content and pushes it out to the users. And I think nowadays users aren't just waiting weeks or months or several days just to get something from somebody else in the organization. They want to do it themselves. And so I thought this is a very convoluted slide, but it's interesting how some of these things do cross. So if you look at from the developers building some reports for those static kind of reports that get run on a daily basis, analysts doing more business query like web intelligence or ad hoc query, as well as maybe plugins to spreadsheets, and some of these circles actually overlap several of these areas for like interactive reports. So parameterized reporting and this new visual data discovery is one we're going to talk about a little bit more. So I think a lot of the stuff we're going to cover today from SAP Business Objects is going to be around kind of more that business user. How can you expand the footprint of what business users can do given the new version of Business Objects? So, and then this self-service, and when we talk about this data discovery, and it's actually the product SAP Lumira is their approach to that. Some people think, well, that is what self-service BI, or it's this new visualization type functionality. But in this article, it actually does talk about, and I think it's really what is self-service BI, and it does cover a variety of areas. So it could be even a parameterized interactive report where the users are able to, based on the interactivity with the report, to do some self-service to answer the question. So it could be as far as that, or analyzing a dashboard, or truly dragging and dropping and building their own discovery or visualizations with business user-driven analysis. And then there's the ad hoc query. So again, these are all different examples, and I think it's important, and I agree with what was stated in the article, that based on your different profile of what you do in the organization, one or more of these may be applicable to you to kind of cover any type of self-service. As far as the products of Business Objects, there are more products than what you see on the screen. SAP and Business Objects is going through, I think, trying to consolidate and minimize the different capabilities. Again, given that they are the market share leader in the space, and they've constantly been innovating over the several years. The different types of capabilities and products has expanded. I think they're trying to kind of refocus a little bit. So if you look under the kind of the reporting, for the production reporting, interactive reporting, that's still kind of Crystal, and that's the play for Crystal. We'll talk a little bit more of the evolution of Crystal today and show you some of that. On the Web Intelligence is still kind of the core business query, ad hoc query, and analysis capabilities. So those are kind of the two areas that are covered under kind of what SAP classifies as reporting. Data discovery is this new Lumira. So if you're familiar with, what is data discovery, or if you're familiar with, another product like Tableau, Qlik, there's other visualization and data discovery vendors out there, and I think they kind of have forced all these platform vendors like SAP Business Objects to kind of wake up and say, this is a big user need. Clearly how the growth of these other companies is expanding very rapidly has forced the companies to come up with solutions to kind of compete with that. And I think actually Lumira and SAP is doing a pretty good job, and we're pretty impressed with how quickly that product is being enhanced. And we're going to show you that. So as far as dashboards go, this is another area. They're still traditional. If you're a Business Objects customer, you may have been using previously called Excelsius dashboards, and they were renamed just dashboards, SAP dashboards. Mm-hmm. And that's still there. Those are kind of intended by SAP to be more IT developed type dashboards, as with Lumira, the business users can build their own type of visualizations and dashboards. But it seems like more of the emphasis is definitely around pushing things towards the data discovery and the Lumira, more so than what was traditionally being done potentially with some dashboards. Now, again, given just like any real complex report, it may have to be something developed with something like Crystal. Same thing could apply potentially to dashboards where, if you have specific requirements that really need to be heavily customized, then that may be where, the Lumira may not be the best fit. And then from the platform, for those of you on 4.1 and 4.0, actually the InfoView or the platform is now been relabeled to the BI Launchpad, where you can manage your users and folders and groups, and there's been some changes to the way that security works from older versions to the new. And there's other client tools and other functionality. We're going to cover some of that today with the 4.1, but another example like BI Mobile is something we're going to try and show you at the end of this session as well. So what's new and how to? We're going to kind of talk a little bit about the new universe. There's been some dramatic changes in Business Objects regarding that semantic layer, the universe, and so we're going to cover that, information versus universe design tool. We'll do a little bit about SAP Lumira, Web Intelligence over the web or with the rich client, Crystal for Enterprise, Crystal Reports for Enterprise, and then BI Mobile. Those are kind of the additional things we want to look at together on this session. So the information design tool. So if you were a pre 4.0, and if you're still not on 4.0 yet, then the only universe that that you're familiar, you have probably in your environment, or that you would have in your environment, would be built with the Universe Designer, the Universe Design Tool, right?
Designer in 3.1.
Designer.
Now known as the Universe Design Tool in 4.0.
Okay, yeah, so Designer in 3.1 and the Universe Design Tool in 4.0, whereas the new universe is referred to as the Information Design Tool. So the traditional universe before 4.x was a UNV. Now they're referred to as UNXs. There's some differences about that. The new universe, you can create single source UNXs or multi-source UNXs. So if you actually do have a requirement to connect to a variety of different data sources on the back end, whether or not that's Oracle and SQL or DB2 and some other ODBC compliant data source, you could actually do that within the universe as a multi-source. You can take a current universe, UNV, as you go to 4.x, and import that in and create a new UNX on top of that. But those all current UNVs do convert into single source UNXs. Some of the key differences about the structure of the new universes is that there's kind of multiple layers. So you really didn't have, you had kind of one layer that was shared between the, the connection. You apply a connection to a universe, you go in, this is the traditional universe, UNV, you do your modeling of your data, you select your tables, you relate your tables, and you create all your objects and structure and organization all in kind of one layer. And now it's been separated, so the connection is a layer, the data foundation is where you're going to be doing that modeling, connectivity, and relationships, and then all your business layer is where you're then defining the folders and the objects and the logic that's built on top of that data foundation. Some of the things that with the new 4.x or 4.1 is, Crystal Reports for Enterprise, only goes over a UNX, right? So if you wanted to use the new Crystal Reports for Enterprise, you wouldn't be able to do that on top of a UNV. And then even the Lumira, you can actually build a Lumira visualization on top of a UNV or a UNX. But if you then want to publish that into the BI platform and have that be refreshable within the BI platform, that unfortunately is only going to work with a UNX. And current word from SAP is that it's not going to be backward compatible to UNVs. So really, once you want to start looking at leveraging Crystal Reports for Enterprise or Lumira, you need to kind of consider that strategy towards looking at UNXs. So we've kind of just started this transition with customers. So recent customers are kind of starting to get a flavor from preferred strategies of UNXs. We'll talk a little bit more about our strategy around that when we get into our BI QuickLaunch 9.0 coming up. Josh, Marla, anything you want to add on the universes at all? Good. Okay. Any questions? Feel free to post those in the Q&A panel. Do we have any questions at this point?
No.
Oh, wake up. Get your coffee. Wake up. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue on. I don't know if it would make sense. I wasn't planning on really showing anything on the UN. If anybody has any questions, we can pop up a new universe, but it's really kind of this. There's just a relations of tables and objects. Looks like a normal universe. Oh, there was a question.
Oh, yeah. So how complex is the process to convert to UNX universes? Can we turn a UNV universe into a UNX?
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. You can definitely convert a UNV to a single source UNX. There's kind of a wizard that walks you through it in the new information design tool. You just select the universe, click next through a series of options, and then it creates a copy of that universe as a UNX. So it's not actually converting the original UNV to a UNX. It's creating a copy of the universe as a UNX. So maybe the next question that would go with that is, well, what about all my content pointed towards my UNV? All of that would need to be mapped to the new UNX if you're trying to really migrate off of the UNV to the UNX. But these universes can certainly live side by side in the same environment. So, if it's going to be a big effort to convert all of your content over, you can create these UNXs for, in order to use things like Crystal for Enterprise and Lumira until you can get all your content converted.
And another question came up, has Preferred Strategies converted their offerings to UNX?
Yes, we have. So our 9.0, our most recent customers are going live with UNXs, and our 9.0 version that's coming out will be UNXs.
Okay. We're good? Any other questions?
I think it's similar. If the universe is converted to UNX, then is there an easy way to change existing Revit reports or Crystal reports?
So, just chime in here, but the way we've done it is just going in, opening up the report and changing the connection, setting the connection to the UNX. It just looks to find all the fields. If all the fields exist in the new universe with the UNX, it maps them over and you're done. I'm not sure if there are some third-party tools that do it in Mass, like maybe from APOS or something like that. Have you read about that at all, Lau?
I think Marla and I attended.
Yeah, we watched a webinar from APOS, and they do have sort of a tool that you can purchase from them that you can do sort of these in-mass upgrades of your UNXs, and it will map your Webby reports, of the UNVs to the UNXs. It'll map your Webby reports for you and probably identify any outliers. We have not tested it internally, but we did watch a webinar, so we can send you that link if anybody would like to see it. Or you can do it on an as-you-go basis and just start slowly migrating your content. The UNVs are here to stay, at least for this release, so you can continue to use your UNVs side by side with your UNXs. What is the advantage, UNV versus UNX, if you don't use Lumira or Crystal Enterprise?
Well, I'll take a start of that one. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that UNXs are going to be the path for the future, right? So any enhancements any innovations are going to be only coming out in the UNXs and not really backwards compatible to UNVs. The biggest advantage is this idea of a multi-source universe. So if you are a UNV customer using UNVs or traditional universes, every universe could only have one connection to one source. So if actually getting and creating universes across multiple data sources, I know in some of the, reading some of the documents, I think there's just potentially some people suggest there's some performance gains. We haven't done a lot of side-by-side testing of that, but the multi-source UNXs will actually not perform as well as single-source UNXs. Mm-hmm. And that's that we have actually identified and have also heard other people suggest online as well.
One thing to add to that too is when you convert a UNV to a UNX, it only converts to a single source, so you cannot take one of your existing universes and convert it to a multi-source universe in order to add another data source to it.
And we will be talking about, when we get to our BI QuickLaunch 9.0 stuff, so we are delivering packaged, we'll be delivering single source UNXs as part of our deliverable, and customers that need to, on a case-by-case basis, create a multi-source, you have a model in place that you could then create what you need in a multi-source.
While this question might be for you, we are currently using Christopher Reports 2008 v1 with Business Objects BOE 3.1. Do we have to upgrade Christopher Reports when upgrading from 3.1 to 4.1?
Yeah, you want Crystal Reports to be the same version as the major business objects release that you're using. So if you're using 4.1, you want to be using Crystal Reports 2013.
And equivalent, if someone was on 4.0, that was 2011, right?
Yeah, if you're on 4.0, the equivalent would be Crystal Reports 2011.
So, all right, we'll keep the questions coming. That's what we're here for. So we're going to kind of continue on. So again, this Lumira, and we'll show kind of a live demo of this just to kind of give you, a flavor. And I think this is really what started, and for several years ago, and some of you I believe are using the Explorer. So it's kind of the first kind of attempt at providing some visualization and exploration of data. When I think it first came out, it was called Polestar, and then they rebranded it as Explorer, which was an ability to take and from a universe create, selecting your dimensions and measures in this predefined format could give you an ability to kind of quickly drill through and analyze the data in that Explorer, and that was the completed component was called an information space. So love all the names. But then I think that was what then kicked off, and this was the next release as the Tableaus of the world really expanded. this is kind of where I think SAP said, okay, let's kind of take the conceptual stuff that worked well with Explorer, but let's take it to the next step to kind of put in something that gives the same business user experience of some of the other competing visualization tools that do that very well. So we're going to walk through and build one of these. We'll kind of actually open up an existing one and then walk through parts of it, covering the different layers and elements of it, given that we have a lot we want to cover in this session. Again, the idea with this, which is why, you know, some companies, if you have somebody that's been introduced in the company or has, you know, brought in, you know, something like a Tableau and you have business objects for your query and reporting, again, the value, I think, of something of a Lumira is this idea of creating this shared layer, the metadata or semantic layer called the universe, and then able to put this visualization on top of that universe provides that governance that might be hard to do if you're doing a mix and match of a variety of different tools. So like if you have a universe for your ad hoc query and your reporting, but then your Tableau stuff's not built off a universe, it's built off you know, just some raw SQL, you may not have that comfort that everything that someone's presenting in a Tableau is the same as it might be on their web intelligence query. So that's a key one there, the universe integration, and then it's we'll talk about licensing in a little bit, but there is an ability to then publish this back to your BI platform, just like you publish your web intelligence queries or your crystal reports, and people can refresh them and view them and drill down and analyze the data over the web. You can do that with these documents as well. So I'm going to flip over here. Let me see my screen, okay?
Adam, I don't know if you want to take this question now or later.
Sure.
The question came through, would Lumira be similar to information space, and what would the differences be?
Okay, so yes and no. So an information space, again, well, that was an Explorer space. So if you think about it, when you build an Explorer space, you basically just select what your dimensions and measures you want from a universe and your filters. And then it allows you to kind of see that by just selecting values, filtering the data, and then seeing the result of those filters, changing a chart from a bar chart to a pie chart. You know, so you're kind of doing a combination. The difference is an information space was really a predefined format. They then introduced the ability to kind of build your own information spaces, right, where you could then kind of create almost your little, from a blank canvas, so to speak. But then once you started building from a, you know, your own little Explorer dashboards, that begs the question, that's probably the closest thing to Lumira, but it's just night and day, I think, what you can do with Lumira compared to the limitations of how you could then build some dashboards from an information space. We're going to walk through Lumira, so if you are a user of Explorer, you know, might want to kind of reserve to your judgment until you see kind of what we're going to show here, and then I think hopefully it'll be a little clearer on potentially how this may overlap. I think the things that you are probably doing with information spaces, you could do with this. It would just be a different kind of experience a little bit to build it, as well as a different experience for the users to consume it. But I would think that anything that you are doing today with information spaces, you may want to look at, okay, is this a better tool? And I would say yes, I would think this is. Also, the other question is, I haven't heard any rumblings of Explorer like already end of life, but my guess is speculation is that I wouldn't be surprised if Explorer is eventually kind of, you know, phased out, and this is the direction that they're pushing people to go. It's already kind of, you're already hearing some of that, but there's nothing that's been drawn in the sand of saying, okay, if you're on Explorer, you know, the next release of, you know, our next support pack doesn't support it. But
the wording that I heard when I attended an upgrade workshop was that they're going to merge the two products. So Explorer and Lumira are going to merge, and it's going to be Lumira moving forward in the future.
Perfect. Any other questions? Or so we're looking
A
at
couple other upgrade questions that we can address.
okay. So yeah, so keep the questions coming regardless of what it is. If it pops in your head, put it out there, and we'll tackle it at the right time when we get to that point. So if you open up, this it happens to be an example we've already kind of started, You'll notice at the top here, I opened up this Explorer. I selected a specific model that had already been created. You'll see I prepare, visualize, compose, and share. If I go back to prepare, you'll notice this is in essence a data set that's already been kind of retrieved. And if we go in here and go to data and choose edit data source, this is going to open up a universe. And so when you build an example here, you select what universe you want based on the fields and calculations, dimensions, and measures that you want from your universe. You select those into your result objects. You can add filters, go through the wizard, next, and then it'll prompt you if you have any parameters that you need to get prompted to get the right retrieval of data. And then it'll give you that data set to work with. To come back and refresh the data, you can come back to this and hit the refresh here. I think you'll also be able to hit the refresh on the next screen as well. So that's kind of the data set where you're going to go ahead. Now you'll notice a couple things. If I go to data and choose add new data set, you can also go ahead and create another query against another universe or even a spreadsheet or whatever the other source of information may be. You'll notice over here you have the ability to go in and merge, just like if you're doing web intelligence with merge queries. You can do the same thing, merge and append data within the Lumira as well. So once you've got your data selected, we go to the visualize, and this is where you can start building your different visualizations. So you'll notice here we've got one by product group, maybe it's a bar chart. Here we've got, a donut that's showing us by customer. On the left-hand side, you'll see your measures and dimensions. So as you bring in that set of data, all those fields will be available there for you. You can create different hierarchies. So if you want to create a geographic hierarchy based on country or region, you could do that, or a product hierarchy or time hierarchy. So you can kind of create those for drill ability. You can also go in, if we go ahead and click on a dimension or a value here, let me go down here. When you go ahead and select an object, you can go ahead, again, that's where you can use to create a hierarchy, create a measure, create a calculated dimension. So that's where you have that ability to kind of add formulas and function logic. You can also add specific calculated measures if you want. So let's say if I want to create a new visualization, I'll hit the plus, and it's going to give me this blank canvas. And so we want to look at maybe our gross profit. So I'll drag gross profit into my canvas, and I'll go down, and let's say that we wanted to see our gross profit broken down by product group. I'll grab product group and just drag it onto the canvas. You'll see it's actually updating my y-axis, x-axis. We want to see this instead maybe as a column chart. We can change that to a column chart. Or maybe if I want to see, we can go up here to our ranking. We want to go ahead and rank these, looking at our top 3 or top 5, or Okay. We can also go and let's say we want to see a dual axis type chart with our gross profit in as well. Which is the drop down here, we can see a column chart with 2 axes, right? And now it's waiting for my second axis. So if we go down and pull, let's say, our gross profit percent, and drag that in. All right, so we can see, so these are some similar things that you might be doing with Explorer and the information space by just selecting the different charts based on what your values are. We can also remove our ranking if we want. Okay, so if you want to then just change something, you create, you can also duplicate these values by right-clicking on one or clicking on the gears here. Right, so you can duplicate, if we want to duplicate an object, right, and maybe turn it into, again, a different type of visualization, you can do that. We want to add a label, we can do things like that. So you basically build these individual visualizations, and this is very similar to like how a Tableau works as well. You build your visualizations, and then you go down to the compose and say, okay, now I want to put those various visualizations into my dashboard. Okay, and you've got a few different flavors. Terminology is kind of referred to as a story. So, you know, you can kind of create a new story. In this case, we've got a couple examples already there, like a sales analysis. We're going to go hit preview here. And in this case, we can kind of see each visualization, and I've asked for these 5 visualizations to be just kind of showcasing them one at a time. So as a manager, I can kind of click through this and see what my results are. Or if you want to actually bring multiple of these onto a dashboard, you can see here we've got the ability to select and say, okay, if I want to maybe filter down on just accessories, we can click on accessories and see the results just for accessories. And maybe I want to look at just accessories on the East Coast or East region. All right, or you can remove these. So this is kind of how you can analyze the dashboards already there. But if you want to create your own, let me go back here, and you want to create a new story, and we'll call this sales analysis dashboard. Why not? Give it a name. So you can actually start from a blank canvas, or you can kind of take one of these already defined, and there's some sample like infographics or slideshow or standard templates. You can grab a specific one and hit create, and you'll notice it kind of already gives you that ability to say, okay, I want to put my bar chart here, I want to put my pie chart here, maybe I want to go and see my geography here, right? And then you can go in and change the name. So you can kind of start building something. And then we'll preview that. Okay. This template had a lot of stuff in Spanish. I'm not sure why, but you can probably relabel it anyways. Okay, so anyhow, that's kind of a quick example of Lumira. Because this is very new to a lot of people, I'm assuming there might be some questions around that. Do we have any questions on Lumira?
No new questions.
No new questions. Okay, so we're going to basically, and I'm assuming that you get similar answers to a lot of these. There's a lot of new features that some people probably weren't even aware of, or just that it's fairly new because they've just been recently upgraded to 4.1 where this stuff became available. I'm going to post another poll question here asking if anybody is using Lumira or what their thoughts are or their future potential use that you might have. So I've got a poll out there. So the first option is currently using it, are you using Lumira? Currently using it and adding value, just started using it, but too soon to tell. Not using it yet, but see potential value. Do not use it. Do not see a use case for this in our organization. And the last option is not sure. So I'm going to leave this open for another 5 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and shut it down. Question?
While they're doing that poll, a question came in. How do you feel Lumira compares to Power BI?
Okay. Well, I'll take a stab at that first. I don't know if anyone else want to take a first stab at that. I'm going to go ahead and close and post the results here, and then I'll answer that one. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like on the response there we had strong majority, nobody using Lumira yet, which again I'm not overly surprised by that. But it looks like there is a fair amount of potential there that people see and others maybe just not sure yet. And a few people I think that may be looking at trying to find a use case. So how Lumira I think compares with Power BI, we've also kind of tinkered with not only Power BI but Tableau, Click. We've kind of played with a variety of the different key software vendors that are doing similar type things. I think the biggest strength for a business objects in general, but also business objects customers, is the fact that you can create a semantic layer and manage all your data and give that single version of the truth for reports, for queries, for your visualization. So having the fact that you can build this off a universe is a huge strength to Lumira. Lumira, so it's kind of, if you look at how you go about building content, Lumira is very similar in the structure of how Tableau works, in that you create your visualizations and then you deploy those to a dashboard or a story. With Power BI, you kind of have this blank canvas. You drag in a chart and then you select in that chart your different measures and dimensions, or the little kind of graphic, and it'll change that and update that on the fly. I think from the ability, one big example I would suggest would be when you're in the visualizations, and you notice there when we were back and looking at, say, at a bar chart, and we did a ranking, right? So if we go in here and want to do a top 3, again, having these wizards that are already doing like a top end. To do a top end in Power BI, you're not going to be able to do it as an end user unless you really kind of do some Google searching, right? So there's some things right now, and again, Power BI has just come out.
Oh, Adam, you're still showing the poll results.
Oh.
Sorry. Thank you, everybody.
Well, that's too bad. You guys just missed it.
There you go.
I got to give, thank you for bringing that to my attention. So basically what I had done was an example. If you go back in Lumira and you're actually at a chart and you want to do a ranking, right? So some of these things that are just, it seems like the controls you have in Lumira for the different, labels and the ranking as an example, or the measures or the calculations, it's a little bit more intuitive, I think, with Lumira than Power BI. Again, the only caveat is Lumira, I think, and Lumira actually it wasn't until this year, that it seems like they've made big strides in improvement. Power BI is also making big strides as well. Power BI has got to do a little bit of catch-up because it just become generally available within the last, couple months. Whereas Lumira, the last couple months they've released updated versions with new functionality, but they're still seem to be a little bit further ahead. My guess is that all those visualization tools, Power BI, Lumira, Tableau, Qlik, they're all going to be fighting to kind of deliver very similar experiences. So I don't know if you'll be long-term huge justifications of one over the other unless you've already got, again, a common foundation on a platform. That was a long-winded answer. Anybody else?
The answer is it depends, I think.
It depends.
Another question that came through is, will Lumira work with UNV?
Lumira does work with UNVs. You can build with the Lumira desktop, which is the client tool that's on your desktop. You can connect that to a UNV, and you can build your Lumira visualization. If you want to publish the visualization or dashboard back to the BI platform, so back to the BI Launchpad, and refresh it from the BI Launchpad, then that will only work if it's built on a UNX. So that's something that so far we posed the question and I've gotten multiple responses back. That is not something that's going to be functionality backward compatible to a UNV. Lumira integrated with BI platform requires a UNX. But on desktop, you can do it with the UNV. But
if somebody just wants to download the desktop version, they have UNVs, they want to get a feel for it, they can do that.
Absolutely. And when I talk about the licensing in a minute about how to leverage the BI platform, that may be a more typical use case for a lot of customers than pushing it back to the platform.
Yeah, I don't believe the free download of Lumira, you can connect to a universe, either universe. You can only do like freehand SQL with those.
Okay.
Okay, so
we'll have to get back to you.
Yeah, we'll go back to each other. Any other questions on that?
Not related to Lumira.
Okay.
A new question just popped up. How much IT involvement is with Lumira creation template sources before releasing to the user?
So, I think if you're a user that's going to build a Lumira dashboard, let's say, it's similar to like building a web intelligence document in that what is the functional area, what is the purpose of the object. So if you're building a purchasing dashboard or a sales dashboard or financial dashboard, you need to identify, okay, what is the source of information that I want to expose? and that determines what universe you might build it from, right? So you have to have that knowledge of, okay, understanding what you want, but then understanding what is the universe that has the information that you need. From that point, it's very similar to web intelligence in that you select the universe, you have the universe objects there, you grab those and drag those into the canvas, add your filters, and then you're pretty much ready to go. You have the ability then to create additional calculations within Lumira, but for the most part, I would think it's really simpler in that phase, or I don't know, it's easier to use than web intelligence, I would say, but it's just different. Some overlap, but different.
Yeah, I think it depends on the end user community and who you're releasing it to, because ultimately some people just want their dashboards.
Yeah.
They don't want to build them.
That's right. And just like you would have IT building Excelsius dashboards and pushing them out to consumers, you'd probably do the same thing here. You'll have some business analysts that are still building out the dashboards, putting those in front of management, but then you'll have some managers that I want to go in there and drag and drop myself. And this tool allows them to do that, where with, let's say, previous Excelsius dashboards is very unlikely to be a possibility. As far as IT involvement, again, if you're going to build it off of a universe, the more IT involvement is in building the universe than it is actually building the front-end content, modeling the data, and making sure you get good results. And if you're going to go ahead and create Lumira objects off of multiple sources of data, off multiple universes, then you have to make sure that you're also then merging things properly and getting good data in that way as well. All right, so let's go ahead and next thing we're going to talk about, and we're not going to do too much live demo on this, but you can't see my screen?
Just give me a minute. Yes.
So web intelligence, if you're, and this is actually, I think the rich client, it used to be, so years back when Business Objects had web and came out, they had desktop intelligence, which is a client tool for some ad hoc query. They came out with web intelligence and still had the desktop intelligence, which was the client. When Preferred Strategy started working with universes, web intelligence was already out, and desktop intelligence was more of a traditional old Business Objects tool. So we basically, our customers started with web intelligence on top of universes. So we never really had any desktop intelligence. We never introduced it. It was at that time kind of being phased out. What's come back is a client tool to do web intelligence type use. And in that sense, it's very similar. It's identical to, not identical, but very close to what building with a Java client, right? So the difference is with the rich client, and we'll open it up just so you kind of see how you get to it. But the difference is you're going to go in, open it up, select authenticate with Business Objects, grab, let's say, either a universe or grab an existing web intelligence report, open it up in the client on your desktop, and then from that point, everything as you're formatting and grouping and changing doing your analysis within web intelligence, it's all happening on the local processor instead of passing every request back to the web. Whereas if you're actually going through Business Objects and using web intelligence over the web, then every request, every time you change a format, that is processing happening on the server instead of the client. Right? Mm-hmm. Some benefits to that are, once you retrieve the data, you could, in essence, disconnect from Business Objects, disconnect from the network, take that data on the plane or at home, play with that data, analyze it, and then connect at a later date and republish it back out. So there's a few things for that. Some people that need to be disconnected from the network might have that ability. And then two, if it's under licensing. Now, I believe for clients, I'll talk about licensing in a minute, but I think that does require a named user. So to leverage the rich client, you need to be, on the new licensing model, need to be flagged as a named user, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to get to it. Anything else?
Well, I think the biggest thing is around Java, in my opinion. You're not having to stay current with Java or be, at a specific Java level when maybe other tools are requiring you to be on one version and business objects is requiring another. Using the rich client kind of takes Java out of the equation for your development. And I don't know, with Chrome, is Java even supported anymore? If Chrome your browser of choice?
You can make a tweak to it that will allow it to be supported for a short period of time, and then eventually they're going to drop it. So the Java runtime environment, as everybody's noticed, has been problematic over the last few years, with it either auto-updating itself till it's unsupported, or, as Josh said, other applications requiring different versions. That's kind of when we first started to really explore the Webby Ridge client and really liking it and finding it that it's got a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't using it. They're not aware of it. But as we are starting to slowly expose more and more people to it, we're getting really nothing but positive feedback. So you'll notice here, and Lyle maybe you can speak to, I'm actually on the server, but if this was my local machine, I'd actually have to load the client tools on my local machine to get access to them.
You do. So yeah, you would have to actually download the installation files from SAP for the client tools. Most of you probably already do have them. And then you would install those client tools. That would install a number of applications, but the Webby Ridge client is included in those applications. If you wanted to install just the Webby Ridge client, you could do a custom install. Otherwise, you could do a complete install and get a number of tools.
And once you have the rich client, we can go ahead and connect and build a, just like you normally do. We don't have to go through that whole exercise. Have to authenticate. Right, and then, at this point, I can go and select my universe, select my object, do everything you normally would do in Web Intelligence, refresh the data, and then I can, at that point, disconnect if I want, and then take that offline. So that is the rich client. And if we go into, I'm just trying to and look at this before our session, but if we look at like preferences, and under, so if you go, you log on as user and you look at your preferences and Web Intelligence, right? So under Web Intelligence view, right, your options are you can choose the HTML, no download required, the applet, download required. So that is kind of the Java client, is that right, the applet? And then the desktop, which would be the rich client, would be, so if you actually select that, by default, when you go and edit an object, it actually opens up the...
That would be on modify, though, if you're going to do the...
Oh.
If you want that to edit. Typically, you would leave HTML as your view, and then modify would set a default to rich client.
Perfect. So, my bad. So that's kind of the other thing. The other thing is that we don't have any options set here, but if you have any questions about some of these other settings and synchronizing drill and report blocks, or on start drill sessions on existing report, and we'd be happy to kind of go through any of those. I think we've done those in prior sessions, but it's been several years. All right. So that was kind of any other questions about the Webby Rich client. Given that we have a fair amount of people on Web Intelligence, I would think there'd be some questions about that. No? Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep going then. All right. Actually, we are going to do, you guys are going to get sick of this, but I'm going to do one more poll on the Webby Rich client. I think some people online may be using it, but most probably are not, but I wanted to put that out there. So again, same options for answers. For some people that are online that may be Crystal only, if you're interested in just in Web Intelligence in general, what that is, we can definitely find some time to kind of get you up to speed on some functionality that you may be able to grow into. Okay. So I'm going to leave this open for 5 more seconds. I still see some movement there. I'm going to get better at closing, sharing, and then hiding the poll. Can we see the results? Can you pop up?
Yes, they have.
Okay. So we've got 13% currently using it, and it is adding value. 50% not using it yet, but see potential. 19% do not see a use case for this, and then 19% not sure. And we only had around half the people voting, so need to get a wake-up call going. Hi, so let me go ahead and hide that. Okay, kind of keep me informed if more questions pop up. Next thing we're going to look at is use a Polygon, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So next we're going to kind of discuss and then show you a little bit more hands-on is with the Crystal Reports for Enterprise, abbreviated just CRE for simplicity's sake, versus 2013. So before 4.x, there was one type of Crystal designer, and in essence what you do is you connect to a data source, and then relate tables, create formulas and calculations and parameters, and then you start building your report. With 4.x, SAP had come out with this new Crystal for Enterprise. So before this existed, SAP attempted to be able to connect the traditional Crystal to a universe, and it failed miserably. So they designed a whole new Crystal client with that focus in mind of being able to build a Crystal report off of a universe. And that's really what Crystal Reports for Enterprise is. However, in the latest release, you can also connect with this Crystal for Enterprise back and relate tables together if you want. You can go ahead and connect to, of course, we've successfully been able to connect to a shared connection, that's a universe connection, and build reports right off of that, relating tables together there, building reports from a universe. There's options to go directly against a raw data source, but it seems like I think as I played it that much, I haven't got as much success with that. But it's something definitely we are currently exploring this and the value of this in future offerings. Again, this is another area that does require UNX. I don't believe there's any backwards compatibility that they're planning on doing this to a UNV. I think this is one of those future things that if you want to leverage the future of Crystal, this is something that's going to have to be in your future there at some point. The other thing that you'll notice, and we go ahead and show you this in action here in a minute, is the query panel. So if you build web intelligence reports and you want to kind of transition into doing some things more in Crystal, there'll be some familiarity because you're grabbing universe, selecting objects, filtering the data, and so forth. And the nice thing as well, which I think is a big advantage over the traditional Crystal client, is that when you build a report with Crystal for Enterprise off of a universe and drag objects, measures, and dimensions into your canvas, it automatically aggregates the data for you. What that means, if you were building a report with the traditional Crystal and there was 5 million rows of data in your result set, you drag in objects into your detail section, you'll get 5 million detail sections on your report. Even though, and then you group it by, let's say, product group and get down to 10 product groups. Well, you would have to then manage those 6 million rows of data and suppress sections and do grouping and hide headers and show footers. With the new tool, based on what you selected, aggregates the data. So there's only 10 product groups for sales and gross profit. You'd only see 10 rows of data on your result set, even though there might be 50 million rows within the back end of the query. We'll show you that in a minute. And then as far as like for formatting and sizing columns, it's very, I think, more user-friendly on actually creating, and not having to get very particular and detailed about, you add a new column. You can insert a column in the middle of other columns and not have to shift everything manually and then drop it in. And it's much more user-friendly in that regard. All right, so let me go ahead and we're going to do a quick example on this. So I'm going to open up Crystal for Enterprise, and this is still a client tool. This is not a web-based tool. It's not like this is something that's done still over the web. It's still a client tool. And if I go ahead here, I can open a report. I can choose New. And we're going to build a new report. And the first thing it's going to do is, you'll notice here we can go in ahead and grab a connection. So if I wanted to create a report like the traditional Crystal, but I want to do it off of a shared connection, I could do that. So if I go ahead and choose Next and Authenticate, you can also do is open up a report built with a traditional crystal report and map that source of data over tables in a shared connection, or even map a report that was not against a universe to a universe. There are some, depending upon what types of reports and types of universes those were built from, may or may not be the, there's different pros and cons to each approach. But you notice here, if I go in and look at, our list of tables here, we can go in and select, just like the traditional crystal, select tables, relate them. That is one way to go about building a report. I'm hoping that that wouldn't be the best use case for why you would want to start considering this, but that is definitely an option, and it may be the best option for some specific reports that you need to build. I'm going to cancel on this. I'm going to go back and choose New again. And instead of grabbing a previous connection, you can also browse the repository. And this would be, in essence, let's go find a universe as my source. So we browse the repository. This would be probably the more common way, and you can navigate to your list of universes, find your UNXs, select a UNX, and then go through the wizard. And at this point, if you're a web intelligence user, you're probably seeing some familiarity here in that you've got your result objects, your filters, and now at this point we can go in and say, let's say our customer name. Let's grab a handful of objects here, maybe a few category codes like channel, region, sales rep. Let's go down and maybe grab our product group and subgroup. Okay. Grab some dates if we want, or you'll notice, like in the sales universe, we have these time-based metrics. For simplicity's sake, on today, we'll just bring in extended amount, gross profit, quantity ordered, and quantity shipped. Okay. You can grab any field, and this is another nice thing, is that if we went in here and said, I want to pull up maybe some cat codes, and I want to pull a filter down on channel, right? If we go here and do with a list. So again, based on the values there, again, you'll see the description. So those are things that we've actually added, expanded. So if you're on a new version of our universes, we're doing a list of values with each value. So where Crystal, a lot of those, if you were doing dynamic lists, you weren't getting that nearly as easily on the Crystal side, and almost building this off a universe gives you a lot more flexibility. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and pull back. You can go do a preview of the data. So if I wanted to refresh at the top, 200 rows here, we could do a refresh of that. And this would kind of just show you an aggregated sampling of that data here on the fly, right? Again, you'll notice it's kind of automatically summarizing. Give me some examples. If we go ahead and choose finish here, now it's going to go ahead and bring me back to my development interface to be able to kind of build the Crystal report. By default, whatever I selected in my query initially kind of by default gets brought in. So you'll see some differences here. I think in the traditional Crystal, you'd see like a detail section and then preview, I think. Design tab. Thank you. Design and preview maybe. Now there's a structure and page. So they've kind of changed some of the terminology. If I go in here, I'm just going to highlight these objects and just delete these from my canvas. Now I delete those from my canvas, but you'll notice those objects are still there from the universe. If I need to go add something back from the universe, I need identified, I need another object. We can choose edit data source and select that and add that back in. If you want to go ahead and create new formulas, we can go ahead and do that as well. Creating a new formula, and you have that ability, just like the traditional Crystal, you got your functions. You can select from your fields, and bring into your. And so you have a lot of stuff that we haven't yet found. I mean, it's a little different. Some terminology is different, but a lot of the same features that existed in the traditional Crystal exist here, except for everything's completely redesigned. I'm going to go ahead and go back here. Oh, save and close. So you'll notice we've got the report header, page header, body, report footer, and page footer. This is what I was talking about that ability to automatically aggregate data. So if we wanted to see, let's say, our sales by product group, if I drag product group into the body, so the body, again, will be that traditional, on the prior version of Crystal, the details section. And then we go in and pull an extended amount and go to page. It's going to reformat this page. You can see there's formatting. So now you'll notice that I've got just, however many sections visible based on my aggregate of my data. Let's go ahead and format that. Just like normal Crystal, we can right-click on this and choose add a total. Okay. Okay. We can also go in. Let's say we want to add another dimension. So I want to see maybe our product group, and I can expand. This is what I was talking about. Just being able to expand the width of columns is much easier now than you could do with Crystal, right? Or bringing in, let's say, our gross profit and dragging that next to Oops, I think I dragged it too high. Let me do that again. Okay. And then if we want to add another, even on looking at the page, if I want to add another dimension, let's say by region or something, we'll drag in our region. And you'll notice here I can put it, right on the left. I can put it kind of, on the right. Just kind of like Webby, how you can drop an object. And that was one of the things that with traditional Crystal, you'd never be able to just drop an object in between other things and automatically have it adjust everything else and shift everything. And so that's a definitely much more user-friendly experience. We want to go ahead and maybe group this data by an insert a group by channel. We can go to insert group, and I want to go ahead and select here maybe our channel and insert that. Going. Oh, there it goes. Another thing I want to point out is that we can always go on these amounts and do a total extended amount for all group levels, insert that. You can also do, if you want, if it's off of a universe measure that already has aggregation in the universe, you can drag into the group sections and it automatically puts that as a subtotal. So if you do that in the traditional Crystal, you drag something into group footer, it's just the raw field. It's not an aggregated field. So that's another thing that just makes the Crystal a much more user-friendly experience. Okay. So that's kind of just a quick flavor. You can add parameters, so you can build more of that interactive reports with prompting a user for things. So the universe has a filter. So you're going to filter the result set that your report has. Then you can actually do, if we go into, spend too much time, you have query filters and interactive filters. So if you want to go back and edit your filter of your query, this will allow you to then add some more filtering on the query that's hitting the database, or the interactive filter, which is in essence doing some dynamic filtering off of your result set already for a specific page that you're on. Once you've built your report, you can go in just like normal, save as, publish this out. Okay. And now that report would be out there available to users just like your normal Crystal report. Okay. So any questions around Crystal for Enterprise? I put everybody to sleep already? Well, I'm going to force you to answer the poll then. So for anybody out there that's played with it or using it, again, this is something that we've just recently started devoting more time and energy towards this. I think when it first came out with 4.0, a lot of things in 4.0 just really didn't, they conceptually worked, but not really worked. And now with the latest release of the business objects at SB6, that checklist of items and issues is finally getting, so small that a lot of these are great considerations. I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll. We got 5% more involvement on that one. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share that poll. Okay, so that's good. We see a lot more potential value around that. Also, we'd love your feedback as we talk about future releases of preferred strategies, how some of these things may apply to what we can be doing to help you guys add value in your organizations as well. So we had
questions.
Okay, let's answer some questions.
It seems that Crystal for Enterprise works only with the UNX, and that is correct.
That is correct. Crystal for Enterprise is UNX specific.
And how cleanly does it export to Excel?
Uh-oh.
Well, yeah, similar to how Crystal exports to Excel, right? I'm a standard Crystal.
Yeah, there's different. Let's pull it up. All right. Josh is gonna. You're gonna learn something here. Josh is gonna show us the tips and tricks of exporting to Excel. We added a new bullet.
Show your screen, please.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
I'd also want to ask a question of if anybody would be willing to speak up of the 8% or the 1% that said we're using it, if they have any experience they'd like to share around how they use it.
I'll have to see if I can. Let me see if I can get. We got to get a way to. We'll try that in a second. So let's just take a look at the export to Excel first, and then we'll try and get more live involvement online. So if we go in here, right? So from this report, if we go in export, you can see very similar to Excel data only, 97-2003 workbook data only. What do you want to do?
Let's do workbook data only.
Okay.
And then typically there's the 4 options that I always recommend. The export element formatting, so if you just check the boxes down at the bottom.
Export
the
element
first one, maintain relative object position, maintain column alignment, and then uncheck simplify page headers. Now these are the exact same options you had with Crystal reports, regular Crystal reports. You can pick what section you want to base your column widths on.
Hit OK.
So go ahead and say OK to that.
I'll put this on this right here. Okay. Okay, so where was that guy at? I'll put it from the top. I'll just do it here.
So, I mean, I think what you'll see here is you could get to this point with Crystal to be able to export this clean by making sure all your columns lined up. You didn't have any gaps in between columns and rows. But, a lot of that is just done based on the native functionality of Crystal for Enterprise. It lines everything up and gets a good clean export here.
Compared to Web Intelligence, where exports maybe always will export a little bit more cleanly compared to Crystal.
Yeah, and that, again, just to be able to shift columns and, if you want to move something around, I can go ahead and I want to drag this. Let me see. Do that. All right, so you can go ahead and just drag a column and move it around. There's a lot more. Like I said, it's been I think a good step forward. And again, back to long term, because they're starting to add the things, and you can pretty much you can connect to the tables. You don't have to go off a universe with this. It begs the question in future releases: do you still need to have the traditional Crystal if you have the BI platform?
Here's a question that came through. Crystal Reports for Enterprise. When would you use Crystal Reports for Enterprise versus Web to create a report?
Well, I mean, what you're getting here with Crystal for Enterprise is kind of the page layout that, it's so much easier in Crystal to create a report that is going to be formatted to fit on a page, and you want it to look really nice and presentable. all the conditional suppressions. That's all available here in Crystal, just like it would, you're using normal Crystal. That's very difficult to do in Web Intelligence. Repeating section or duplicating sections, so that you can do maybe conditional suppressions on the sections, things like that.
What would be nice is if this did have a conceptual approach like Web Intelligence of different tabs, right? But you don't really get, this is a traditional, you can do sub-reports, right? You can do sub-reports like different sources of data, different universes, different data sets, but it's still kind of you're going to kind of create a query and then consume it and then, create your formatted report. Or Web Intelligence, you can in theory pull in a whole year's worth of data and then on different tabs represent that data differently.
So another question came through, what are the requirements to upgrade from Crystal Reports 2013 to Crystal Reports for Enterprise? And they're two separate client tools, right?
Yeah, right now they're two separate client tools, as you said, so you could install it side by side.
Yeah, so here,
so Crystal Reports for Enterprise requires either a managed connection on the business logic server to go directly to tables or a universe as your source.
well, it's something we need to get back to more, and I don't know, in all the testing that we've done, it's been, I think, against some of the connections, the shared connection, or there's also a connection to a vendor, right, which is kind of like appears to be almost like a raw connection. Now, if I go, though, to an example, let's say like Microsoft, I'm only seeing SQL Server 2008 as an option. So I don't know, if we go into, I think, our universe connections at the universe level, we're seeing, 2012 and newer stuff than that. So I don't know if you truly can do, if that connection to a vendor, like I said, every time I've tried something there, I've gotten an error, but that could be user error.
Well, the rumor or sort of I guess, unofficial messaging that I've got is that they forked the product in 4.0. In other words, they took Crystal and they spun off this Crystal Reports for Enterprise. The intention early on was to just use universes. The intention is to add more types of connectivity to Crystal Reports for Enterprise until they eventually merge the two products back together as one.
So yeah, I would assume at some future release, you're not going to have, two client tools for Crystal. In this case, you'll notice on the desktop we got Crystal Reports for Enterprise 4 and SAP Crystal Reports 2013. And again, you can load both of those up, two separate tools, use both of them side by side. But long term, I wouldn't expect you to get two tools in future releases.
Just timing-wise, just checking in. Where we're at.
Okay. Yeah, I think. All right. So let's go ahead and we already did that poll. Okay, we're back. All right. The last thing we're going to do on the business objects new stuff is, can you see my screen? All right. So BI Mobile. What used to be in prior versions a fully separate installation, downloads, is now all packaged into the platform. Is that right?
Correct. In 4.1.
4.1. So when you actually load up 4.1 or upgrade to 4.1, assuming that you know how your licenses work, you can. Do you have to do any settings or any configuration? What is it?
No, if you do a complete install, it's all set to go. It's just a matter of downloading the mobile app onto whatever mobile device you're using and then connecting from your mobile device to the server.
So I went to in preparation for today, I went to the admin guide of the BI Mobile and found that we know it was Web Intelligence documents, Crystal Reports, hyperlinks. So we've confirmed that we have been able to drill down on reports via open document. I'm not sure that's what they're referring to as hyperlinks are supported. Excelsius dashboards, Explorer. Now, Lumira server visualizations, Lumira documents, I believe, work with the BI Mobile if you are licensed for Lumira server. If you're licensed with the integration of the BI platform, this is not going to make sense to really anybody. I don't think that works yet. So if you want to deploy Lumira, integrate with your BI platform to the BI Mobile, I think there's still some work to be done there. But everything else is something that And I don't know, I think for all the content within Business Objects, to expose something on a mobile device, there's a category out there in Business Objects called mobile, right?
And if it doesn't exist out of the box, you can create it.
Now, I didn't test this. I probably shouldn't try this on the demo, but we'll try it anyways. Okay, so if you go in to take any report, I shouldn't do it in my favorites. Let me do it down in shared. Well, for one, there's a category here. Under corporate categories, there's a category called mobile. So you need a corporate category that's called mobile. So as Lyle mentioned, if it doesn't exist, you create it. You go to any report, and if you take a report and just right-click on that and choose categories, if you go and you just select mobile and highlight mobile, that basically makes that report visible on the mobile device. Okay? So that's how you determine, and then you can also how you set up your security. That all kind of plays into, you know, how things can get organized and restricted. But that's how you get an object that's supported type object available on a mobile device. So I'm going to try and show a quick example of this. There's a 50% chance this is not going to work because one, it's a demo, and two, I've got to basically get my iPad screen to be displayed on my computer.
Any questions? Well,
Not around mobile. There's some other upgrade type questions.
Okay, let's see. So you gotta ignore my six-year-old's apps on here. So if you load up the app, you can kind of see my screen, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's not in the middle, but
You can see it.
okay. If I go ahead and open up the app, and I logged in a few minutes before the session, so there actually is a passwords. You kind of create an app so if someone else gets access to your mobile device and logs in, they'll have to kind of make sure that they understand, they know your application password, and then there's also your authentication to the Business Object Server. Now, if you have Active Directory, does that work from here? Do you still have to key in your password, single sign-on?
no, I don't think there's a single sign-on.
Okay. Let me see here. We'll try this guy again. All right, so this is, I promise you can't look. We actually never did ask any questions about maybe the people using Crystal for Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. I was just more curious.
Okay, I'm going to cancel that. Okay. So when you actually log in, and then you go, let's go ahead and connect. You can specify a connection to which server. So in this case, I'm going to connect to one of our BI servers, the demo, the one we're using today. And it's going to prompt me for my credentials to log in. So I'm going to connect. And we're just going to show a couple examples. I didn't really prep anything real slick for today, but just turn that sideways. But so let's go down. If I go and say, look at my favorites, right, or my user. So as the CFO, maybe I've got these kind of already selected as my objects. If I go ahead and open up, let's say, a consolidated income statement, this happens to be a Crystal report, right? So again, just the dynamic nature you have in your report, if I go ahead and drill into this, just like I can drill into my Crystal report over the web, I can go ahead and drill through this report just like I can normally. Okay. Okay. And go home. Oops, sorry. Let me go back into that real quick. Just like you have the folder structure, right? You can go in and break out your different folder structure and select different areas as well, just like you normally would in your group tree on the web. We'll go back home. Let's go and look at even like what you do sometimes when you build let's say like a web intelligence report. Let me see if I can pull up the web intelligence example here. Should have been more prep for this, but which one?
I don't know, one of those inventory on hand ad hoc.
I clicked on the sales ad hoc, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about when you build your web intelligence report, it'll automatically try and retrofit that back to here. You notice that that pull-out window is for kind of whatever grouping or sections you create. You can navigate based on that flyout. If you have different tabs you've built into your web intelligence report, those different tabs will be just available there. And you can kind of see, again, the different, you can drag your finger around and show the different values on your pie chart. So again, it'll automatically do a good job at trying to resize best it can. Obviously, if you're building a specific report for this use, you're probably going to do a little bit back and forth. Say, okay, I'm going to make a, this 2 blocks side by side or on top of each other, or make sure that the columns are sized properly. But that's kind of the mobile. And again, what is supported out here is web intelligence documents, crystal documents, drilling down, hyperlinks work. We have confirmed that. Excelsius documents are out there. Again, Lumira is one of the ones that I would be surprised if that should come out, I would think, with the BI platform at some point, but I don't have any timelines for that. Any questions on BI Mobile?
Is there a certain license, this is me, is there a certain licensing you need to be at to have mobile if you're on 4.1 or 4.1?
I think mobile, it's included with Edge. If you're licensed for the BI Suite, and we'll talk about that, I'm going to do a licensing slide here in a minute, we'll talk about that. You get it. I think if you're on a la carte business objects, it's still something you have to basically license individually. But now since it's part of and basically baked right into the platform, we'll see the slide. It'll probably tell us in a minute.
We just got 2 more questions. For SAP Mobile, do we need to install any software? And how secure is mobile for sensitive information?
That's a good question. So if you are doing a complete single server deployment, you do not have to install any software if you want to access your mobile content on the LAN. So there's a lot to discuss when it comes to security and whether or not you want to be accessing this type of content from the internet. And that's going to involve a conversation with your network team, how you want to go about things. As far as security, there's a couple of approaches. You could have people potentially using VPN to access the server. So in other words, you would install a VPN app on your mobile device, and that would be encrypted. Some people or some organizations would say, no, we don't allow that. So the alternative in that case would be to typically you would set up an application server in your demilitarized zone on the network. Then you would point that application server with the mobile app toward the business object server, and you would open some ports between the application server and the business object server, as well as the internet and the application server. Then you would typically configure it to use SSL, and you would probably buy an SSL certificate. So I know I'm probably getting into way too much detail, but can it be secure? Yes. It's going to involve really getting your network team involved.
So in the way that I was using, if I'm inside of my network and I'm VPN'd, right, is how I was even connecting there. I was over just a Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you weren't using VPN.
But
on the internet, I'm sorry, let me finish.
Well, so if I didn't have, because I was on a separate network, right? So
Yes.
Wi-Fi, like even let's say from my house, Wi-Fi, my house, not connected to our network.
Yeah.
I do a VPN. I can then connect to the server, right?
That is correct.
So does that change any? If someone is really already has it from their mobile device VPN, does that change any of the?
That would be the easiest way to set things up to access your mobile content from the internet. It is as safe and secure as your VPN connection. Yeah,
if anybody's interested, I've been posted the poll. It's actually been up for a minute now. put a poll out there for 2 minutes and still only got a little over 50% response. Man, I'm not doing a good job here. Let me go ahead. Even that comment didn't get another vote. All right, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and share it. Okay, so again, I'm not surprised that a lot of these new features that have been just really enhanced mostly within the last couple of service packs, with people who don't give a ton of usage, but yeah, so 65% definitely see potential, 24% don't see a use case, 6% just got started, and 6% just aren't sure. Okay, so let me go ahead and hide that. Let's just talk. Let me know when you guys can see it. Does the screen back up? Okay, I'm getting better. I can be trained, somewhat trained, not fully trained, but somewhat trained. Licensing. So I know customers on the line are probably at different various offerings from Business Objects. On the left-hand side, we have some maybe that even using Crystal Server. I didn't even put that up here. Crystal Server is one more restricted offering before Edge. It's a single server deployment. So a lot of people online, I think, do have Business Objects Edge. This is, in essence, their current under the new license model. So if you bought Business Objects Edge after starting from 2012 forward, this is kind of what you have license ability to, how many developers versus how many consumers that you have access determines on when you bought, and we can get into that whole one-off. So if you have any questions about what you are currently licensed for, feel free to post that in our survey at the end, saying, hey, I really like to understand what I do and don't have access to based on what you showed. I'd be happy to kind of tackle those as case by case, because it would be different for every client almost, or several clients. With the 2012 license of Edge forward, it does include a Lumira desktop license for your developers. Okay, so what this Edge does not include is the ability to integrate Lumira into the BI platform. So you can build those visualizations, you can build your dashboards on your desktop client, but you're not licensed with just your normal Edge license to then save those to the server and refresh those over the web. You can license that by licensing a separate license of Lumira Server. In today's price, Lumira Server costs the same amount as Edge. So to license the BI platform for Lumira, it's going to force you to then almost double up your licensing. Crazy? Will that ever change? Maybe, but we've got confirmation that is the current licensing model there. What are the other licenses we see on the screen? So as far as before we actually move forward, mobile, so as far as the Edge license, mobile BI, Lumira Desktop, Design Studio, which is another type of dashboard design, right? I don't think it's more came from the SAP side. I don't think it's really infiltrated, but it is another option for some dashboard design. If you have any OLAP cubes, you can use some analysis for OLAP. You'll notice Live Office is not on the screen. Live Office is still a client tool that you can use, and a lot of customers do use. My guess is that the analysis for Office currently today does not run against a universe, but that the rumor is that that will eventually potentially merge with Live Office and then potentially replace Live Office. Web Intelligence, Explore, Dashboards, Crystal Reports, and then the BI platform. So that's Edge. If you look at, you need to deploy on a multi-server environment, we've got the BI platform as an a la carte, so you can still license the platform and then individual tools or capabilities within the platform. That's what this SAP Business Objects BI platform, where everything is kind of an a la carte model, or the BI suite. So the BI suite is in essence a full bundle like Edge, but it's non-restricted. Edge does have a certain number of named, and I think it's like 100 named and 50 concurrent licenses as a restriction. The BI suite doesn't have any restrictions. It's a full bundle. It does include the Lumira with the BI platform. And it does include a Lumira server, a HANA, a runtime HANA instance. HANA is some totally different subject for a different day. but that is something that's available. From a licensing perspective, it is cheaper to license the BI suite than license Edge and Lumira server combined. But depending upon, it's very close, it's almost a wash. But if that is something that you either need to have the scalability of having a multi-server deployment, so fault tolerance, you want to dedicate specific physical servers or virtual machines to run specific processes for web intelligence job servers, or just have that ability for having more of a closer to 100% uptime, that's some options there. Getting off on a tangent on licensing, if anybody has any questions about where you're at or how to maybe take advantage of some new features, if you're on an older version of a license, just feel free to let us know that you're interested in regrouping on that. I did get notice from SAP on some current opportunities. We're working with some reps there and saw some forwarded emails to me from management at SAP about credit toward kind of shift of license from something like Edge to BI Suite, and what level of credit you'll get. I think for the next 2 quarters, 2 or 3 quarters, potentially till I think the 2nd quarter of next year, they're being very aggressive, but every quarter it gets less and less aggressive on how much value you get towards a credit on an upgrade of license. So if that is something of interest, I mean, like I said, I'd be happy to kind of get an idea of where you're at. Real quick, I think that was most of our hands-on demo. There's maybe a couple of things we'll just show glimpses of, but with 20 minutes left, we'll going to kind of get into what expectations there are if you're either looking at going from an earlier version of Business Objects to the latest, or even earlier versions of the latest of 4.1. So Lyle, you want to kind of just chime in on expectations around this?
Well, yeah. As most of us may know, the current version of the SAP Business Objects product is 4.1 SP6. For those that are on 3.1, the end of mainstream support is the end of this year. So come first of the year, that's the end of mainstream support. At that point, there's really no new development of any kind of support packs or patches. They typically say that, you have to move to a priority 1 support in order to log support cases. That's a paid support. However, we've seen that in the past that the support group is fairly flexible with that. They'll frequently try to help you anyway. So it would be a good idea if you're on, especially if you're on XIR2, to start looking to move up to 4.1, or as on 3.1 as well, look to move to 4.1. For those that are on 4.0, we think you'd also benefit by moving to 4.1. Looking at the specific terminology, Business Objects actually calls an upgrade the actual act of moving from XIR2 or 3.1 to 4.1, and then they call moving from 4.0 to 4.1 an update. The approaches that you would use to do either an upgrade or an update, if you're moving from XIR2 to 4.1, first you'd want to make sure that you're on XIR2 Service Pack 2 or higher. You would actually go and you would build out a new 4.1 system or systems, and then you would actually move content using a client tool called the Upgrade Management Tool. That Upgrade Management Tool, you just basically specify the source and the target, and then you specify which content you want to move. If you were to go to 4.0 to 4.1, that type of an update, you could do it as an in-place update. In other words, you would download the newest incremental 4.1 patch. That would be incremental 4.1 SP6, and you can just install it over the top of the existing 4.0 environment.
And same for 4.1 SP3 to...
Same thing, yes. So it could be any service pack. You would just download the latest incremental support pack and install it over the top of the existing system. That would be the easiest. That's the quickest and easiest. I did speak with somebody that worked for SAP as a consultant that said that you could, if you wanted to, make a backup of your 4.0 system, in other words, a backup of the file store and the CMS database, that you could then uninstall all of the 4.0 software, reinstall a brand new 4.1 system, and then restore the CMS database and file store. And that would be a bit more involved, but it would be a cleaner install. I haven't had anybody offer that option yet. So, yeah, we really like 4.1, especially these higher service packs. I'd encourage anybody that's not there to, take steps to get there.
And like an example of that, like for instance, LiveOffice up till SP6, the current release, LiveOffice only ran on top of a UNV and not a UNX.
Correct.
And then now with like 6, LiveOffice now is supported on a UNX as well. So that's another example of, like I said, that list of open items that we identified, with 4.0 and then even 4.1 early versions came out, is getting smaller and smaller. So, if you're not already there, or even at an earlier version of, 4.1, SP 1, 2, or 3, or what have you, even Lumira, there's some, if you are going to go down the path of integrating Lumira with the BI platform, that's going to force you to kind of get to that level anyways. There's a new version of Lumira that just came out, it was at 1.28, I think, that really has that integration with the platform and a requirement, and I think that's not requires to be at SP6. Yep.
Lyle, we have an upgrade question around 3.1 to 4.1. Chris reports 2008, those existing reports, do those get upgraded to, when you upgrade to 4.1, do they get upgraded to Chris reports 2013?
Yes.
So they're automatically upgraded on the enterprise server, so then you'd have to upgrade the client.
Yes, you can open them and work with them in Crystal Reports 2013. I don't actually think it even changes the file. It's if you could work with it in 2008, you can work with it in 2013.
Could you continue to work with 2008 if you've upgraded to 4.1? No, because you want the client tools to match.
Yeah, you want it to be in sync. You've got to take that as a case-by-case basis, because I've seen just over time as you get to different service packs, and we've got people at all different service pack levels, that eventually it won't be backward compatible. We have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Lyle. So, see my screen again? Yeah. So the next thing we're going to do, we've got again a couple minutes left here. Our virtual academy. Again, this is something that we started putting content out and didn't really do a big push for it because we wanted to kind of just keep adding more and more content, and then we just in the last few months started to get more and more people interested in it. So it's kind of something that we are refocusing some energy around, and obviously if there's any feedback from you guys, we'd love to have it. What is our virtual academy? Basically what historically Preferred Strategies has always done a J.D. Edwards flavored training for business objects on the customer site using the customer data. Occasionally customers might do it on a remote session. We actually have taken some of our training curriculum and put it out there into recorded exercise by exercise, go at your own pace training online, where you can kind of it doesn't require an instructor. However, if you have any snags when you use it, we're here to help or answer any questions that you have. But we always did the training with on site or online. There's minimums on number of users, and so a customer that might have one new person that gets added to the company, it doesn't make sense to basically do a whole training. I think this is a great avenue for that. So I'll show you a quick example of this online here. The idea, or currently what's available, we have a navigation of the new business objects for X, so how to get people to be familiar. It is a change in platform and user experience in the 4.x compared to the 3.1 and XIR2. And even the web intelligence has been dramatically changed as well. So we have a web intelligence training, we've got a navigation training, we've got a Chris Reports RD1 training. We're looking at expanding some additional Crystal training. Either comments, Josh, on that, or let me go ahead and see if I can. So here's an example when you actually log on based on, and we have different levels, and so you could actually just get access to some of the ad hoc training. That's not what I wanted. So if you want just web intelligence, you can do that. Or if you want to be like a power user, get access to everything that we add across all the different areas, you could do that. And again, the nice thing about this is that you'll notice all the similar to the structure of our formal training, we've got exercises. It's all broken out. You can kind of go, and if you have 2 hours a day, you can spend on it and come back to it next week. Again, it's a go at your own pace. And you can pause videos. You can go back, rewind something if you're trying to follow along next to it. But if we go and let's say I want to look at maybe using charts in a report, right? So I don't have to put the audio on here. You want to make sure, for future reference, if you are using this, that you are using the higher quality video. It does make a difference on the visual of what you're getting. And you can see on the right, you can kind of navigate as well. And it keeps status of where you're at in your training and when you're completed and so forth. So again, this is our virtual academy. If you're interested in learning more about that, again, it's something that we have to reserve and pay for licenses on a user basis. So it's something that we basically are selling subscription access to this on an annual basis with renewals at a discount as well. So again, if this is something that you guys are interested in getting some web-based training, let us know. I don't know, there might be anybody that's taken it recently. If not, I did have one last poll question on that. So if anybody has taken, I'm going to launch the last poll question on the virtual academy.
Well, that's going. There was a question earlier about multi-source universes, and the question was, doesn't Crystal already have the same ability to pull from financial data in JD one and maybe billing data in another system? I think only through the ability of sub-reports. Can you link to connections in Crystal Report?
Yeah, you can have, you can pull from different connections and join the tables together. Again, it's one of those things where it makes the reports run really slow when you do that. But you can do that.
Okay, so you do have that ability, but also now you have the ability in a universe. You can do that there as well.
Okay. So let me go ahead and close this poll, and we'll share that last result there. Okay, so it looks like we had some people online that have taken it. Thank you for not suggest. I didn't have an option out there to say you've taken it and it sucked, but thank you for giving us a plug. But yeah, it seems like more people have value. So we'll actually, if anybody, like I said, if you want anything us to reach back out to you on in your survey result, then feel free to post that, and we'll send out probably a particular email if there's anything that you would want us to connect with you on. All right, so last few things as we tie up and wrap up this session. Thank you. I was. You
were about to do it.
No, I was probably going to do it in about a minute. Okay, so 9.0.
I'm still seeing the poll.
Okay. All right, so you're still seeing the poll? Okay, let me see. Yeah? You're still seeing the poll?
I am. I don't know if anybody else can put in the chat if they're still seeing the poll or in the questions.
You're still
poll.
Let me see if I can.
Thank you for that person that did it in caps. Now it says main screen.
So you can.
Now we see preferred strategy user group meeting, like your back end screen. We don't see this at all.
Okay.
Stop sharing the screen.
Stop showing the screen. That's okay.
Yeah.
And then show again. Now you see it now?
Yes.
Huh.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Got it. And a happy face.
Hey. I think we're just gonna look for.
There were some really good comments.
She goes on the down low. Okay, so I'll let kind of maybe Marla speak to this. Again, our next release is going to be 9.0, and we're kind of targeting now a Q1 of 2016 deliverable for that. And anybody who's interested in potentially being a beta site or just kind of have specific feedback, as we're still kind of fleshing out some of this. If there's anything specific that you want us to get on the radar, please reach out to us.
Yeah, as Evan said, in our 9.0 release, we're going to be rolling out single source UNXs. So you guys would have the option of either installing those UNXs separately and configuring them, or if you've done a lot of customizations already, your other option is just strictly to update your existing universes into UNXs. So that our new customers are going live on UNXs.
For people that were not on 8.0, though, if they were there's a lot of enhancements to the 8.0 universes that kind of carried into the UNXs, had a lot of the list of value. I mean, there's a lot of rework that we did there that would be advantageous. If you're not on the 8.0 release of the universes, you probably want to consider an upgrade.
Right, I agree. And we can talk to you individually if you have some questions, if you're looking to do an upgrade. We're going to be adding some additional universals. We'll probably build them in the UNVs, I would imagine, first, and upgrade the UNXs. So for the additional ones, like the unpivoted, like an unpivoted 902 or an unpivoted, 1202, we would make those available in UNVs and UNXs.
What that means, the unpivoted universe, in essence, if you look at the summary tables in JD, like the balance file, the 902 or the 1202, the equipment, it stores data one row per year. So you get dimensionality by year, but you don't get a dimensionality really by a month object. You get the first column is January, or period 1, period 2, period 3, all those different columns. An unpivoted adds a new dimensionality by period, which allows you to do more trend type reporting, and also the way that we calculate some of those time-based metrics on top of that is much more kind of intuitive and efficient than dealing with the raw natural schema of JD. So sorry, Mara.
Again, as you see, we've been working with Crystal Reports for Enterprise. We may or may not have some reports, some pre-built sort of CAN reports on top of Crystal Reports for Enterprise connecting to the universe. We've also, in the process, we have expanded our offering and will continue to expand our offering, so around manufacturing and transportation. With other enhancements in existing universes, things like, adding certain tag files, maybe the 4801T that work for a tag file. Maybe some of the things you guys have done individually, we'll be rolling them into our out-of-box universes in future releases, as well as minor bug fixes that have occurred that we've discovered in the 8.0 stuff. So that's really it in a nutshell. If there's, like Adam said, if there's any specific things you would like to see, please send them to us, and we can look at including those in our 9.0 release expected for Q1 of 2016. Josh, do you want to add?
That's good.
Okay.
The other thing, which again, the last thing we'll show here in the last minute, we do actually have, and I think since our last user group, we've kind of gone through different iterations of this, but we do have our table inquiry that for users that are kind of getting in and exposed to the understanding the tables and relationships and fields, or looking for a field, not sure where it resides. I was thinking. Okay. So I'm going to log in here. This is so again, this is part of your maintenance, gives you access to this. So I think I put a survey question. If I didn't, put a comment that you want us to set you up as a user to this this inquiry. This is one of the benefits of the maintenance, is you do actually have access to applications like this that we may develop for development, user, power user and analyst type use cases. Again, real quick, if I'm looking for a table, I can go in here, let's pull this. I know I'm looking at the F0006 table and I want to filter that down. I can select the table. There's 152 fields. These are the fields and the metadata around that, the types. If I'm looking for a specific date field, again, I can select down to just the dates. If I click on the next tab over, we can see the indexes. If I look at my user-defined codes, these are all the product and system codes, and give you all those for all the available fields in that table. If you look at changes, it actually puts in there from 8.9 to 9.0 to 9.1, what are those changes that have been introduced and when those were introduced. So this is an example of if you wanted to mine, let's say, at one table at a time, you could do that. We go to the field list, and we say, well, I know I'm looking for a field, and let's say I know that the alias, it's an AN01 field, right? I can filter on that, and it'll come back with every table that has that alias in it. So I know that if I'm looking for something, it's got to be one of these tables. You can also do searching within the description. Say, I know it has the word, ledger in it or something. So again, this is another example of something that if you don't have access to this already, I know some of you have been set up, but there's probably a lack of awareness of it, and so we wanted to bring that to your attention. So let us know if you want us. And then there's a simple, just a Julian date conversion. If you want to convert from a Julian to Gregorian, or I guess so Julian to Gregorian or vice versa, we can go ahead and do that. Lastly, I know we're kind of out of time. I'm not going to let me do this in about 2 minutes here and wrap it up. We do actually have, and over the years, we have expanded to other areas as well beyond business objects. So as far as the Microsoft stuff and free plugins to Excel, Power Pivot, some of the tabular, some of the free licensing from Oracle they give you for BI Publisher. We have been able to kind of create some jump starts for that as well. As far as the data, a lot of the business objects is basically built to go against the natural schema. A lot of you are doing it direct connect. Some of you are probably offloading your data and replicating your JD Edwards data. We can help you with that. So for those of you that are maybe going direct connect today, but want to transition and move your reporting and analytics off of your transaction system, an operational data store or data warehouse might be an option for that. And so if these are things of interest, like I said, just reach out to us. We'd be happy to kind of share with you what our experience is in that area and what we have that may be able to provide some assistance. Again, the data warehouse is probably more in line with companies that have either multiple ERPs or multiple instances of JD Edwards or very large sets of data, or need to tie in and integrate a variety of different sources of data together, or you need to do some type of history preservation of the data for slowly changing fields like your sales reps change divisions. You need to kind of keep that historical look of where they were in the past. Our data warehouse is real quick. Again, it's more of a taking that data already tailored for JD Edwards into a star schema, just like our BI QuickLaunch for all the business objects. Content is very quick, can be up and running very quickly. We can get 10 modules up and running of our data warehouse in a matter of less than a week as well. So it's very, very fast there. It's just restructuring the data, and on the data side is kind of doing a lot of logic that a traditional universe is doing. And so if you go with something like a data warehouse, it does not negate the need for a universe. Business objects requires a universe to do all of the analytics. It's just your universe to be connecting to, let's say, the warehouse instead of the transaction JD Edwards fields. The operational data store is another thing. Again, if your plan is to offload reporting away from your transaction environment, then an operational data store might be the simplest way. If you're on a SQL environment, we actually have ETL packages that will then replicate the data for you. If you're on Oracle or DB2, we use third-party tools and partner with other tools to replicate that data, pulling from the journals or logs to kind of get near real-time updates. So regardless of the ODS or data warehouse, we don't do nightly updates. We actually do near-time updates that are anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes lag behind production. Are there any other? That was it. Any questions? I don't know if there's any questions that popped up.